Good morning. We're going to do some work with what you got Wednesdays. We're catching up on the Inktober tangles. So today we're going to do a few days. We're going to work on the Bijou tiles, which are about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches square. We're going to work on the white and the black alternately between the tangles. We're gonna see how that works out and see how we go. First step of all is to take a nice deep breath. Make sure you're comfortable where you're sitting. In through your nose. Hold it for 4 seconds and breathe out through your mouth. Again, in through your nose. Hold for 4 seconds and then breathe out through your mouth. All right, first one we're going to do is by Judy Genovese. It's called Sunbelt. We're going to do it on the white tile, and we're just going to give ourselves some guidelines. With the pencil, just going to do a band within which we're hoping to do our tangle. The first step of Sunbelt is to do a zigzag line. And you kind of want your triangles to line up at the bottom, but if it doesn't, that's all right too. And the next step is where you have a peak of triangles, you're going to do a hash mark in line with the tips of all the peaks on either side of those peaks. And then you're going to invert your tile or turn it around, or you do the same thing on the other side where the peaks of the triangles meet. And from those triangles, or those dashes, you're going to make other triangles. And you're going to, or the line of the bigger triangle to start. And same the other side. Just going to, or the line of the larger peak to make that first side of our triangle. All your triangles don't need to be the same. What happens sometimes? We have to do this last one. All right, the next step is where you've got the triangles. You can ink them in. Which generally means just to blacken them, darken them, or add the contrast. When you're inking in, you're careful to try and remove all of the white space if you're working on a white tile, or all the tile color if you're working with a different marker. I'm using the Micron 02. I like this one better than the Micron 01 because I'm generally a little heavy-handed with my pen, and I find that I do more damage to the finer pointed pens. But this one seems to work out okay. We're gonna swap it around. We work on the smaller tiles because it's easier to maneuver, because sometimes a little 10-minute break is enough. And you want to try and keep your tile and your hand in a comfortable position so that the relaxation and the soothing calm you're supposed to, or trying to get with the tangling, isn't impacted by how uncomfortable it is to do the task. I'm just squaring up my triangles. That doesn't really make sense, but I'm reshaping them as I go because I prefer to do it that way. Okay, the next step in Sunbelt by Judy Genovese is where you have two triangles. You're going to retrace the line of the one end. And on the same on the other side so that you form another triangle. And depending on the angle that you've made your triangles, it may or may not work exactly, but you can get the idea. And if you're going off the tile, that's okay. Just imagine that it continues on. We're going to turn it upside down and we're going to do the same thing. So again, we're retracing the side of the interior triangle and this interior triangle, and the same on the next one. And we're going to imagine that one goes off that way and that one goes off that way. And then in the side closest to the double triangle, we're just going to echo the interior of the triangle. I'm going to invert it. And the same thing where the two are the closest on the bottom. Those are the sides that we're going to do. So now we have diamond shapes inside our triangles. And in each of them, we're going to do an oval shaped orb, trying to touch all four sides of the diamond. And my triangles or my diamonds are not all the same shape. So my orbs, my ovals are not also the same shape. But that's all right. It's not about perfection. We're doing it exactly the way it's meant to be. And then we're going to ink in the parts of those diamond shapes that are not part of the orb. Or you can contrast them in a different way if you want to do vertical lines or horizontal lines. You can do that too. I'm just going to ink them in like that. We're going to do all the sides the same way. Careful to ink in all of the tile colored paper or colored paper that you're working on so that there's no little white spots. So we're trying to be intentional with where we put the ink, because if we focus on where we put the ink, since it is an easy task and our brain's taking a break from whatever it was busy with before. Remembering to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth, keeping a comfortable grip on the pen, not squeezing it too tightly, just enough to have the control you need to control the nib. If you want to listen to music, you can do that too. Just whatever helps you find your moment of quiet. Chasing your chill. All right, now I got all my diamond shapes inked in. I'm going to turn it on the next step This is to delineate the belt part. So, and just kind of tracing the outside of where those smaller inked in triangles are. And you're doing it on both sides, so you want to try and have the same width of band on either side, stopping when you get to the, bless me, excuse me, the peaks of the triangles. Right, capper pen, add a little shade. I'm gonna add it to the corners here. On the right side of my triangles. I'm gonna add that to the right side of all of them. And for my ovals, I'm gonna do like a happy face with the side of my pencil. And then I'm going to buff it out. With my tortillon. I'm just gonna do circles with the tip of the tortillon, holding it kind of flat or level with the table. I'm gonna turn it over. And for the little smiley faces, you need the orb shapes when you do that little half moon or the crescent type shape. You do circular motions to soften the graphite, and it sort of gives it a different dimension. All right, I'll pick up our pen. I'm going to actually do another aura. I'll go for the whole outside line, the peaks and the belt on the top and the bottom, because that's what I wanted to do to mine. And you can do as you like with yours because it's yours. It's not going to look like anyone else's. I'm gonna add my chalk. That's Inktober 2023. Judy Genovese Sunbelt, day 4. I'm a bit behind, but we'll hope to catch up today. Next one we're going to do on the black Bijou tile, which means we're going to work in white ink for a change. I use this Unibalsino pen because I like the feel of it, and it's the graphite. We use the white chalk pencil for adding our contrast. First, we're going to reset with a breath. Big deep breath in, holding it, and then out through our mouth. The next one we're going to do, we're going to mark our points with our white pencil. You can use white or whatever you have with you. In the center of the tile, I'm going to give myself 4 guide points. And then I'm going to do the same in line with those on the outside of my tile. I'm going to pick up my pen, and the stroke is starting from one of the points in the center, one of the 4, when you have as many points on the outside, and you're making like a teardrop shape. I want to go out, and I want to take in that other mark I did and bring it back to there. And I want to do that on all 4 sides. So out, rounded, back towards the point. And I rotate just to make sure that the stroke that I'm trying to do is the same on all sides, and they don't have to be identical in size. Fourth one up in a rounded end, passing the mark and coming back to the point. Sometimes working with the white ink, it doesn't flow the same way. So that's the first step. This is Nayu by Emiko Kaneko. The next step is, if you turn it sideways, you're going to connect these 2 together on a single line. And then the next step is to go about 1/8 of an inch inside, and you're going to retrace that whole shape, trying to keep the width of the trace or the aura the same all the way around. And you're going to stop when you get back to that line. Then we're going to go to the other side. We're going to connect those to the continuous line. And then we're going to retrace that line, or that shape that we've connected with an aura all the way around and back to the starting line. And then the white ink, you have to retrace it just to make sure it's clean so that you can all see that. And then you're going to imagine, because it's going under like hollybaw, we're just going to connect up those lines as if they're passing underneath. We're going to do it on that side, and then we're going to do it on that side as well. Okay? The next step for Nayu is to do an orb in the center. And my orb or square is very small, so it doesn't show that there was an orb, but we can change that a little later with the. And then in each of the spots between the loops, you're going to do an orb to fit that spot. So you want to do an orb that touches all 4 or all 3 sides in the areas beside the loops. So you're doing 4 orbs in each of the quadrants or areas you have left. Trying to make contact with 3 lines you do have to work off of. And they don't have to all be the same because your lines aren't going to be identically spaced. And once you have your orbs, we're going to pick one side to start on. And we're going to do a rounded leaf in the center of the orb. And maybe it goes up as big as your first loops. And my pen's getting a little dry, so I'm gonna spin it some more and get the ink flowing again. All right, and then you're going to go from one side of your first leaf and bring it back down to your orb, and from the other side and bring it down to your orb. And then you're going to rotate, and you're going to draw that same big leaf or flower petal shape back to the center of your orb, and then again one to the right, one to the left, trying to fill the space as best you can, but again, it doesn't have to be identical. Rotate it, one petal central in the middle connecting back to the orb, and then another one on the left to the orb, a little shorter than the central one, and one on the right. Again, we're going to do central petal, and one on the left to the orb, one on the right. That is Nayu. So what you can do is start to accentuate it. So I'm just going to do a flick of my pen at the bottom of each of the petals. And I think for the loops, I'm going to do a horizontal line. And I'm going to mirror that angle on this loop, and then I might change the direction of the line for the other two that face each other. Or I can do the same line, but since I turned my tile, it's going to give the impression. And if you're working with a pen and you break the line and continue it off, it sort of gives the impression of a shine. All right, now I'm going to cap my pen. I'm going to grab my white pencil crayon, or you can grab your graphite. And I'm going to add shade, contrast to the points where the loops meet the petals. Same thing, holding your shading tool flatter to the paper so that the point doesn't push it into the surface. It's all muddied up because of the graphite from the last one, but that's okay too. And I'm just gonna kind of buff it around the perimeter of the shape. I'm going to use my pencil. I'm going to try my black pen to emphasize that central orb that the white pen did not allow me to demonstrate or ink in properly. Maybe we'll do the half smile in the orbs. I'm going to uncap my pen, and I'm going to do my chop. And that is Nayu. That's a tangle by Emiko Kaneko CZT, and it's day 5 of Inktober 2023. So we have Sunbelt and Nayu. All right. Flying through on this work with what you got Wednesday, we'll go back to the white tile and the carbon or the graphite pencil and the black ink. And we're going to do Imaritas. And I'm going to refresh my memory how to draw that. All right. Taking a breath to reset into our nose. With our pencil in the middle, we're going to do 2 dots, about 2/3 of the way. We're going to uncap our pen, and we're going to make like a right shape connecting those 2 dots. Okay, and once you have your first rice pod, you're going to divide it in half, 2/3 of the way down. And then you're going to break off to one side and then break off to the other in the same way. And then you're going to divide that top half of your P shape in thirds. So there's 1 and there's 2. And you're going to echo that line on this side. And you're going to extend up from the middle. You're going to draw a plume. It comes back. And on the other side, a plume that comes back. And you're going to continue drawing plumage, dropping it down lower on the one before. Until you get to the bottom of the seedling that you did already. And then you're going to echo the shape here. I'm just going to ink it in to make it clear. It looks like an arrowhead or something, for lack of a better term. And you're going to echo it on this side. And that. And then you're going to resume your plumes, taking in the added base. That is Imaritas. I think I'm going to add a little more detail. I'm just going to extend the tops of the plumes and ink them in. I'm gonna ink in those arrowheads at the bottom just to contrast them with the totally inked in one in the center. I'm gonna add some shade around the outside of that original seed shape. And then I'm gonna work again. Careful that when you're working it, you're not trying to work the graphite into that rice pod shape. You're trying to work it into the design around it to give the illusion of texture or dimension. And if shading is not your thing, because it is not my thing, I'm not very good at it. I don't do it well. You leave that part out. You can add other colors, whatever it is you'd like. I'm gonna add my chop. That is Imaritas by Debbie New. That's Inktober Day 6. All right, we'll do one more as part of this video, and then we'll change it up. We'll go back to the black and the white inked pen and the white charcoal pencil. We're going to do Foundabout by Zentangle Inc. For Foundabout, this might be very small to work with or work on, but it's sort of a vine tangle. As you, I'm gonna just go straight up with the pen. So the first stroke, we make like a blade of grass kind of shape and bring it down more rounded at the bottom. And then for the next one, you try and find the halfway point. And that's the starting point for your next blade of grass. And the same again, halfway point, blade of grass. And as you progress, you'll get incrementally smaller as you run out of room. All right, so you've got your blade of grass. And then the next step is to do the underside. We're going to take the point of our blade of grass and we're going to reach it back to the bottom. And the same on the other side, on the tight. And then once we've done the underside, the next stroke is from the tip of one blade of grass to the halfway point of the other. So the tip to the halfway point, tip, the halfway point, the tip to the halfway point. You're just going to imagine that that follows all the way through. And then you want to just add action or distinguish between the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to do vertical lines on the bottom half of my pod shape. I think I can try and do another one over here. So again, you start with your blades of grass, and then each connects back with the underside. And then the halfway point, not a lot of room there. Make it much harder to see on such a small tile. I'm just going to add a fescue. Which is just a line that bends and then the tip of the line curls back in a teardrop shape. It's just a fescue. It just adds more dimension to the tile because it looks kind of plain in the black and the white. Maybe an orb. All right, that's Foundabout by Zentangle. Maybe we'll have to redo this one on a white tile, a larger scale, so that we can see the definition better at another time. I'm gonna add my chop. That's Foundabout. By Zentangle Inc. for Inktober Day 7. We can work with similar tiles. And you can also combine them into different collaborative pieces. or leave them the same. All right, big deep breath.